In this lesson, again, we'll look at a very powerful tactic called the discovered check or discovered attack. One of the very powerful themes. To understand this, we'll look at this example. And the first thing I notice here is the queen and the king are in the same line, right? Now, if I move the knight anywhere, okay, it will become a check to the black king. So that is called a discovery. You remove the piece between the attacker and the attacked. So in this, the white queen is the attacker, the black king is the potential target, and we have the knight which is blocking the check for the moment. So it gives me an amazing option of moving the knight anywhere. Black will be in a check and it has to protect his king. Okay, but now the next question is, where do I move my knight? Okay, there are multiple possibilities. Let us look at them. I can move the knight here, here. No, we can explore whole of the range of the knight, right? Multiple places for the knight to go. But which one gives us an advantage? That's the important thing. So let us say I give the check here. There's a double check, right? Two checks. Looks pretty dangerous, but the king can move away simply, right? It still has a safe place. So not working. Looking at this position a bit, I also noticed the black queen, which is in range of the white knight. Okay, from two of these possible moves. Okay, now my mind is thinking, if I can move the knight in such a way that it attacks the black queen while the white queen is giving a check. One of the ways is knight to d5, right? Knight moves to d5, captures the pawn, and the queen is giving a check. But unfortunately, it offers black a defense because the king is going to capture the knight, and all my tricks fall flat. Okay, so I have to think a little bit more and I have to explore the next option of putting the knight to c4. Right, it gives a check, it is a double check. The queen is giving a check, the knight is giving a check while also attacking the queen. Very important. Okay. So when I give a check by moving the knight, let us do it here. King has to move away and I am able to capture the queen. Okay. So we use the method of discovery, the discovered attack, to be able to capture one of the opponent's pieces. Very powerful tactics, and we'll look at many examples to deepen our understanding. Okay, next one. Okay, now time to think. Okay, now what do I see in this position? I see the bishop and the rook and the king are in the same diagonal, correct? Now, wherever on the board I choose to move the rook, it will be a check to the black king, correct? Now, I also see there's a black queen here. Now, I am starting to think, where do I move the white rook so that once it moves, bishop will give a check and the rook will attack the queen. Okay. And yeah, there's only one way, and that is the rook to b4. Okay, so I'm capturing this pawn. None of the black pieces can capture my rook because the bishop is giving a check. So the first thing black has to do is to take care of the check. Let us leave it here. King goes away, moves away from the check, and I very happily go ahead and capture the queen for free. Okay, so again, by using this very powerful tactics of the discovered check, where you move the interposing piece away, exposing a check or an attack, and you're able to capture the one of the opponent's pieces. Okay, so let us look at one more. Okay, very interesting. The first thing, so how to think about this position? Okay, uh, first, just note the position, then we'll look at the forcing option. So, the first move in any position you should think about is a check. Check is the most forcing move, right? Might not be the most correct move or the most powerful move in any position, but it is the most forcing move. So, the way to think about chess position is that whenever you look at any position, you have to find all the checks and then the captures. These are the two most powerful moves, the checks and the captures. Okay, so in this case, I see, what do I see? Let us say using arrows, the queen is under attack, the queen and queen are in the same diagonal. My rook can give a check on c5. Okay, so let us say I move the rook here, it will become a check to the black king. While as soon as the rook moves, this diagonal will open, correct? And I'll be able to capture the black queen using a discovered attack. Okay, so very powerful tactics, very interesting, and there I go and capture the queen for free. Okay, since this is very interesting, I like this tactics a lot. Have been using this in my games forever, and I'm sure it will be useful for you too. Okay, for this one, I will give you a few seconds to figure out. See the placement of pieces. The rook and the black king are in the same line. The bishop is interposing for now. Where do we move the bishop so that once the black king is under a check from the white rook, the bishop is able to capture the black queen? Think for a moment, not too difficult, simple geometry. And yes, the move is bishop to b7. See, the king is under a check from the white rook, and we are attacking two things at the same time. The king has to move away from the check, and simply we go ahead and capture the queen. Interesting, right? Okay, we'll see a few more. Very nice, very nice. Little tricky, very nice. Okay, so the white bishop and the black king are in the same diagonal. Black bishop seems to be hopelessly restricted by its own pawn, but pawn does have a move, and pawn can move to b4, right? We already know the pawns can move either one or two steps up as per the player's wish when they are stationed on the original square. So here, when I place the pawn on b4, the bishop's diagonal will open up and it will be a check to the black king. King has to move away or block the check somehow, and the pawn will go ahead and capture the queen. Okay, so I leave it here. The black king moves away from the check, and I go ahead and capture the queen. Okay, so such a powerful tactics using the unique position of the bishop and the king. I was able to discover a check, and using that, capture the black queen. Okay, one more. Yes, of course. Okay. Now, since we are aware of the concept, I'll give you a few moments to figure out the basic placement of pieces, what geometry is available in the position. The bishop on f4 is looking through the pawn at the queen on c7. And the pawn itself can be moved to give a check. And yes, the theme is very simple. I move the pawn up, the pawn gives a check, king moves away, and I go ahead and capture the queen. Okay, so the movement of the white pawn discovers a check and discovers an attack on the queen on c7. And what do? Of course, we capture the queen. Okay. Look at last two examples. Well, let us go to the next one. Okay. Now in this case, we see the black queen and the king are in the same line. The bishop is in between. Now where to move the bishop? Okay, I can move it in multiple places. But what is the maximum I can achieve from the movement of the bishop? That's what we have to think about. Now, there is let us say, an opportunity to, let us say, move it here, right? So it will be a check and king moves away and I can capture the rook. That is interesting too, can be done. Okay. But then we see the queen is also on a white square. Okay, and the bishop is also on white, which gives me an idea. I can place the bishop here. So while the queen gives a check, bishop will attack the queen. So we discover and check on the king and we at the same time attack the queen. So let us go ahead and make the move. Bishop to c2. King has to move away and we capture the queen. Okay. As the last example, we'll look at a very powerful method of a discovered check, which is also a double check. Very powerful. One of the most dangerous moves on the board of chess, a double check. So in this case, the rook and king are in the same line. Black has so much extra material, but because of the availability of this very powerful tactics, very unique method of double check and discover attack at the same time, we are actually able to do a checkmate in one move. Surprising, right? But it is possible. The knight goes to g7. See this very unique position? The rook is giving a check, the knight is giving a check. And two checks at the same time cannot be prevented because neither the bishop can block because it is a check with the knight also. Okay, so very powerful method of gaining an advantage. Usually, my experience is if you are able to do a double check, usually that is the moment where you gain a major advantage or basically achieve checkmate. Okay, so since this is so interesting, we'll look at the last two examples also. Okay, what do we have here? And we have the bishop and the king in the same diagonal. Knight is ready to move and gave a check. Discover check from the bishop. Knight can move here. Pretty attractive, right? I can capture the queen. But again, using this very powerful tactics, we can do a checkmate in one move. Can you find what it is? There's a discovered check plus a double check. Where do we move the knight? Think about it for a moment. And yes, the move is knight to b6. See how so very interesting it is. Really fun. The knight is giving a check. The bishop is giving a check, which was discovered by the movement of the knight. The king cannot move, and it is a checkmate. Very powerful tactics. And we'll look at the last example. See, such is the power of this tactics, which is kind of in this position, a combination of a discovery and a double check, that in spite of having such a great material advantage, black will be checkmated in the next move. So if you simply count the pieces, black has almost like all his pieces. Black has 5 pieces and white has only 2. But that is the power of tactics in chess. You can have such unique positions where you can achieve advantage or even checkmate even while having very minimal material. That is the fun of chess. So in this position, where do we discover a check? Okay, there's only one way to do it. If I move the bishop anywhere, right, it will become a check But then it will give an opportunity for the black to block the check. But when I put the bishop here, such a interesting position, such a fun to see this. Bishop gives a check, rook gives a check, and it is a checkmate. In spite of having so many extra pieces, because of this powerful tactics, black gets checkmated in one move. This position always leaves a big impression on my mind. Very powerful tactics. Okay, so I hope you found all these examples very interesting. Go through the exercises, practice them, and develop your understanding of the topic. And I'll see you in the next lesson.